We're going to start with quadratics for identifying parts. Go ahead and copy these notes for standard form of a quadratic equation. These are little parts that are going to help you to graph them, to identify certain things. So all these little notes are super important. Go ahead and pause the video to take these notes. So now when you graph it, that quadratic equation creates a U shape, and that U shape is called a parabola. In order for us to graph it, we kind of need to know where the axis of symmetry is and the vertex. So the axis of symmetry tells you where it's going to be symmetrical. Just like when you think of art, it's going to be symmetrical between that line, over that line. And then for the vertex, the first number, the x coordinate of the vertex, is your axis of symmetry that you found. Then it is your maximum and minimum as the y coordinate. Maximum and minimum tells you the topmost point or the bottommost point, and that is the vertex, right? So you don't have to remember that formula in purple for maximum. If you have x, you can substitute x back into the formula and get y. So there's a couple of different ways that you can solve it. Go ahead and pause the video and take these notes. Now that we've looked at the basics for this, we're not going to use a graphing calculator, even though it says so, and you can use a graphing calculator just to kind of see what it should look like, but let's try and sketch it based off what we know. What we know is that we have the y-intercept, and this y-intercept is feasible on this graph, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, -5, right? So we know it's going to be around here. If we look at over here, this sign is positive. Since it's a positive sign, the parabola is going to open up. So it's going to be a U shape instead of an upside down U shape. So it's kind of going to look something like that, but I'm going to bring this down. Since it adjusts it, it's going to look something like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just kind of want to understand, does it open up? Does it open down? Right? Is it crossing the x-axis? Is it crossing the y-axis? And let's try that again. I want you guys to try it for the next one, just based off what you see. So go ahead and check your answer to see if you are correct. Again, today's lesson is mainly sketching the graphs. We're not going to get exact points just yet. So let's go to the next page. We're going to do the axis of symmetry first. So your AOS, or your axis of symmetry, is x equals -b over 2a. Well, from my quadratic formula, or not quadratic formula, the quadratic form, right? My standard form of it is ax squared plus bx plus c. So when I substitute this, I'm going to use parentheses. My b is 8, and my a is 1. So I get a -8 over 2, which gives me a -4. So my axis of symmetry is x equals -4. So when I sketch this, right, here's my x, here's my y. At the -1, 2, 3, 4, there's going to be this axis of symmetry. It's a dotted line. That's where it's going to be symmetrical. I also know that because of my a, it's positive, it's going to open up. If it opens up, that means there's a minimum most point. So you're going to circle the minimum. That's what the vertex is going to be. Your vertex is -4 comma something, right? Your AOS is the first part. Well, I can do the formula for c minus so on and so forth, or I can just take this equation that's given to me, and anywhere I see x, I can substitute the -4. But be careful when you're substituting it, especially with negatives. You want to make sure that you're calculating it correctly. So now, when we go to solve this, we are going to get 16, a -32, plus a 15. Now when I go ahead and solve that, I should get a -1. which means my vertex is a -4, comma, -1. So my vertex is -4, -1, around here-ish, right? Just an estimate. And we know it's opening up. And the y-intercept is 15. Ooh, that's really far up, right? So we shouldn't be crossing the y-axis when we sketch this graph. Our graph is going to be like super narrow. Oops, not a V. It's going to be super narrow, right, until it can cross the y-axis at 15. So it should kind of look like this. I want you to try number 2 below it, using what we just practiced. Go ahead and pause the video before you check your answer. Here's the answer for number 2. Check to see if it opens up, if it opens down, right? Number 2, that A is negative, so it opens down, which means it has a maximum. So it's going to look like an upside down U. You can practice with the rest of this page if you want to pause the video here before I show you the answers. Here are the answers to number 3 and 4, right below that, just so that you're getting the practice. Let's move on to the next page, as there are 2 other types of problems that you might get. One, let's take a look at number 3 here. If I write the standard form of the quadratic equation here, we're kind of missing a C here, which means it's kind of like saying +0. So go ahead and tackle this just as if you would if it had a C here. And then go ahead and try number 4. Again, it's the same thing, except I'm going to notice that something is missing, and it's not my C this time. If I were to line this up, here's my x squared, my C, your bx is missing. So when you substitute for that axis of symmetry, you're going to have a 0 in that B spot, which means your x is just 0. This is where the vertex ends up being on the y-axis once you solve it. Pause it and see if you can finish the rest before you check your answers. Here are the answers to those 2 that we just did. And again, there's no visible 0. So make sure that we're sketching it accordingly. There's tons of practice that you can work on from here.